least a little bit, and you can take turns coming closer. So I'm going to use Luke's paper. You can start to record. I'm going to use Luke's paper, and we're going to work on this blue area here. He's got a layer in the background, which is a great way to get started. But do you see how you can see his pencil lines going in different directions? That's also one of the things that makes a huge difference between a junior high art project and moving towards a high school looking art project, is to eliminate those lines that you can actually see. The number one way we can do that is, even after you have your first layer on here, take your same color and with the tip of the pencil, work in a circular motion. So I'm actually going to use the tip of the pencil in a circle right over top of it, and just don't press hard. We don't want the colored pencils to look shiny, okay? We want them to keep layering on each other. And if you work in small circles with your colored pencils with a sharp point, it gets down in the tooth of the paper, the texture, and then it starts to fill it in more. Layering with colored pencils and actually shading takes quite a bit of time. Somebody already asked me today, I believe it was Lily, and she said, well, Miss Wilson, how long are we gonna work on this project? The shading part of your project, if you do it correctly, should take you about 2 weeks in class, because you only have about 30 minutes to work on it. If you are not done with it, if it doesn't take you that long, you're not shading properly, because of the way that I know the surface area that you have. So you can tell right here on this paper, just by adding another layer, no matter where you're standing, you can see right here it starts to get darker. It's the same color, but it's a darker shade now, okay? If I want to change that, I'm going to work in the same area. I'm going to pick a pencil in the same color family, okay? But it's a different shade of the color, and I'm going to go right in the same area. I'm working in a circular pattern again, and I'm just going to add another layer of color over what I just did, so that you can see how just adding one more layer of color, not pushing any harder, just adding another layer of color will change this area again really easily. It'll still look the same aqua blue that Luke chose at first for his area, but it's gonna make it look even darker in this space. So it's not gonna take me a long time, but you will see that the circles are working in a circular pattern is also getting rid of the straight back and forth lines that we could see before underneath of there. The other thing is if you took this paper that you started with on top of here and you wrote on it, you're going to be able to see those letters show up in your background, because those impressed lines down into the tooth or the texture of the paper, and they will be harder to fill in. You'll notice them showing up right here because he must have wrote a letter K over top of this, okay? So I'm in the same area. I'm working. The smaller you make your circles, the more you'll get rid of those lines that you could see going back and forth from when he started. And you can see just by layering another color now, it didn't really change his original color, but it made the same area even more dark, okay? And then if I want to change the color now to get a darker shade of his blue, I can pick the next color, the next pencil that's a little shade darker. And I'm gonna say he tried to outline the areas to make them darker, so I can tell that he wanted this space to be darker. So I'm gonna make it darker in those areas by taking the next shade dark color and just work that color over the areas close to where he had it. And I'm gonna shade out a little bit farther so I don't get just a line around the outside shape. We don't want to see a line of color. Like, you see how he made this darker and it looks like an outline around it? You want to shade it out a little bit farther so it gets rid of those lines and it's more of a gradual change. So the more you layer the color, this is looking kind of purple, the neater your project is going to appear, and the better the transition of color will look. And it'll look more like a high schooler did this than a 7th or 8th grader, or even some of you a 3rd or a 4th grader, depending on your coloring skills, and if you use the lines or if you worked in circles. The other thing you can do is keep changing the direction of your hand. You notice that I changed the direction of my paper. You can move your paper around and work with it in different directions. So you can see now I'm starting to get even darker areas. It still looks blue or aqua. The other thing I can do is when I finish layering underneath, I can take this same color and put a layer over the whole top, and it'll help transition it even more. So I'm changing the direction of my paper again. And then I'm gonna start to layer a layer of color over all of those I just did. I still can tell by what Luke did here with his outlining that he wanted that area to be the darkest. Once you get so many layers of color, especially if you're using the Sargent Art brand pencils or if you're using the Crayola pencils, they automatically start to look shiny, or burnished is the actual term for that. We try to stay away from the burnished look unless you want it to be that way specifically. And if you want it to be that way specifically, your project is going to take you 4 weeks to do if you do it correctly. Because you need to have, if you burnish, your whole project should be burnished. There shouldn't be areas of gradual change and transition or burnished and then some burnished areas. So if you want it to look the entire thing shiny, you can do that, but you just need to spend lots more time. In order to get the darkest color here that Luke was looking for, I'm going to use that color called indigo blue. The Prismacolors are what I like to call your magic colored pencils. They are the softest lead of all of the pencils that you have in your bins. They transition the colors the most nice out of all the brands because of the softness of their lead. They can sink down into that tooth of that paper better than anybody else. So you can see right here, just by adding a little bit of color, that really changed the transition, and it's going to help us get rid of this blue line that Luke had right around this Superman logo. And you just shade out from that direction. And when I add this, I'm still working in a circular pattern. I'm just doing it lightly. I'm not pressing with tons of pressure, okay? And I'm just adding that layer. You can see I just did the navy blue in just this space, or the indigo blue, not navy blue, indigo blue. And it does definitely change this. But all of these different colors together now make this aqua up here a lot darker here. But if you actually look at it, you get all the different colors or shades to show up here. It looks a lot nicer than just this solid colored background space, okay? So does everybody see how just layering the colors, you can achieve different darknesses, but you can still stick with your main color? Like it still looks aqua or teal, whatever this blue was. What does this even say on here? It says azul. It still looks that color, but now you have these different graduations, darknesses, and lighter areas throughout the space, okay? We'll post the video so you can watch the video over and over. You'll be able to watch it on the smartboard. You can also watch it right from the YouTube channel, and I'll show you how to get there at when everybody gets back.